Hey, it's Marthea. It's the MSW coach. I'm going to type a comment, and then we're going to get started. If you're watching a replay, just skip ahead a minute or two. I am not talking at all. Okay. So I pinned my comment. And let's get started. So I want to talk today about, ask the question. And if you're watching a replay, drop it in the comments. I see when y'all be responding to my questions. How much is your expertise worth? Like, do you accurately know like how much your expertise is worth in the job market? And the reason I'm asking this question is because I noticed like a running theme with some of my coaching clients where they are not accurately assessing how much they're worth in the job market, and it's leading them to staying in positions where they are severely underemployed when they can be earning much more. And so it's not until they get their first macro job do they realize like they should have been making more money all along, especially once they get that job offer and they're hearing how much they are being paid for their new position. But this is after like 10, 12, 13, 14 years in jobs where they were not being accurately paid. So my question today is, how much is your expertise worth in the job market? And if you're coming in, drop in the chat. If you this is a safe space. Drop in the chat we don't know who you are. We just see your avatar. Drop in the chat how much you believe your expertise, not your experience, right? And I only say not experience because many people who work with me don't end up pivoting into jobs that are directly like related to what they've been doing as a social worker, right? So I always say that you don't have to be married to what you did in the past to get the macro job you want. You can pivot into a completely unrelated area. So as an example, if you've been working for the last 10 years as a medical social worker, however, you're extremely passionate about environmental justice and like pollution and things like that, you can still pivot into a macro job doing work around environmental justice and pollution and the trash in the ocean and all of the things like that, right? You don't have to be married to it. Not how I coach my clients. So as you come in, if you're watching a replay, drop in the chat how much you feel that you are worth in the job market. And I'm going to give you 3 indicators that you may not be accurate in your estimation about how much you are worth, right? And so this is something that I've been like really watching closely over the last 5 to 7 years and working with social workers and what I see them doing. And I'm noticing that it's a recurring theme. And so after I see things enough, I really get to understanding why this is happening. So sign number 1 that you don't know accurately how much your expertise is worth in the job market is that you underestimate your market value solely. Well, you estimate your market value solely based off of what your current employer tells you, right? So what I mean by that is like in feedback sessions and one-on-ones and what do they call it? Quarterly reviews. What do they call it? Assessments where they assess you, or even just how your supervisor or your director treats you, right? I was thinking what's prompted this conversation is one of my coaching clients just started her macro job yesterday, and she landed a job with the organization in Washington, D.C., and she's making $40,000 more in a year. And this is the most that she's ever made in her almost 15-year career as a clinical social worker that has worked in like hospitals and things like that, right? And so what I mean by that is she came from a very toxic type of work environment where essentially once I started working with her and really started digging into what she was doing in her day-to-day work, she was essentially running the entire administrative side of this clinical like system, right? It wasn't just a hospital, it was a like region-wide system of clinics. She was running it. She was running the value-based care piece of it. However, she wasn't able to explain that to me. This is what I had to assess after working with her for months and really digging deep to understand what she was doing. And so based on what I learned about what she did in her day-to-day work, what she had done historically in that position, and then when I went out and researched what value-based care is and how it's in relationship to a larger federal initiative around making certain that everyone has care to access to holistic health care, I was like, your worth is way more than what you were being paid. She was being paid less than like $40,000-$50,000 a year, when in essence what she was doing was the job of 10, 12 different people. She actually had designed the system. Now, years later, because she had been in that job for so long, there are actual applications like softwares that healthcare systems purchase to do the work that she was doing manually. Healthcare systems purchased this software to automate that process. However, years later, she was still doing it manually, and it was what she created, right? And so I tell that story because she severely did not have she severely underestimated her market value. She did not know because one, she wasn't staying abreast to what was going on outside of her organization. Just like many of you on this live and that will watch the replay, including me, we are high achievers. We pride ourselves on our work. We're going to do it with excellence. We're going to make certain that it's always top notch. However, in your ambition, in your desire to be like the super person, you also cannot lose sight of the fact that you are a business. Right? So she admittedly did not understand, like, wow, this has really become something major that I'm doing, and I should be being paid more. And then in addition to that, her employer was severely, like, mistreating her. So I say that to say that she severely underestimated her market value because she did not know how to track, like, how much her experience was really worth out in the world of work. Right. And so what I see is a lot of social workers experiencing that. She's not my first coaching client who has experienced the thing where if you don't understand the magnitude of what you're doing in the relationship to your organization and in relationship to the ecosystem that governs your organization type, you will continue to be severely underestimating your market value, which means you don't, when you come up for those annual reviews, quarterly reviews, however often your organization does it, you don't even know that you are in a position to request for a raise. If you were bold enough, which most of the people aren't to that point where they'll leave, if you were bold enough, you wouldn't even know like how to negotiate a new job offer because you're not accurately staying in touch with the labor market to know how much your experiences were. So that's the first sign, is that you severely underestimate your market value. You think what you do is nothing, right? Literally, that's what my coaching clients think. They think it's not a big deal. And it's because they have not fully developed their macro lens to understand that, yeah, you're a micro social worker. Yes, you're in direct practice, case management, insert your thing, but you're still a part of a much larger effort. And the more experience, the more you master that thing, the more your worth increases. And you should be accurately like keeping track of that. Okay. So the first sign is that you underestimate your market value. And I'm looking at my notes. The second sign that you don't really know how much your expertise is worth in the world of work is that you make lateral moves to the same type of positions, right? So what I see, again, this is all things that I've assessed over the last 7 years, two years before I got on the internet, and in the last 5 years since I've been on the internet. A lot of social workers make lateral moves to the same types of positions, thinking that, okay, this 5,000 more, this 3,000 more, maybe 10,000 more is enough compensation for my expertise, right? So what this looks like for many social workers, especially my medical social workers who have clinical licensure, who work in healthcare systems. If you are a medical social worker, like, I'm going to group you in, that group of social workers are notorious for this. And what I see is that they move from one healthcare system to another, but to the same types of positions. Or if their confidence is like not where it should be, they will stay inside of the same healthcare system and move from one position to the next. But they're only making lateral moves, right? And what I mean by lateral moves is maybe in the first job they were a social worker 2. I'm just making this up, but it's real. Maybe they're a social worker 2. They then get another job as a social worker 2, but just in another healthcare system or in the same healthcare system, right? And so they do this for years. This isn't like a one-time thing. They do it for years. I have a coaching client where she has been in the same type of lateral position for almost 10 years, but she's been with like 6 or 7 different organizations. And again, this is a common thing. And so when I see that, that is an indicator to me that you don't understand how much your expertise really is worth in the world of work, right? And so I want to say that if you find yourself deeply desiring to have upward mobility in your career, but you're still staying in the same types of positions, you don't have a clear understanding of how much your experience is worth. Because ideally, what your career should be doing is making an upward progression, right? I'm not saying go be the president of the hospital. However, if you've been a social worker 2 for 4 or 5 years, we now need to be shooting for social worker 3, social worker 4, social worker 5, right? But my medical social workers, they are notorious for that. So that's the second sign. You make the same type of lateral moves, be it inside or outside of the same organization. I see a lot of social workers staying for 10 plus years with the same organization, but in the same types of positions. Like, their confidence is not high enough to go outside of the organization. And if you're experiencing that, that's a sign that you don't have a clear grasp or understanding about how much you're worth in the job market. Okay. The third sign is that you have a fear of starting over, right? So I've been hearing that lately from my coaching clients who just started with me, that I'm like, why did you stay at this organization for 15 years and you don't like it? Or that they started there straight out of grad school. It was offered to them as a result of doing their practicum or internship there, but they don't like it. And then that they have major fear about leaving the organization, and then having to come back, right? And so when I hear words like that, that is another indicator that someone does not have, that you don't have a good understanding of how much you're worth in the job market. And I'm going to tell you how to start knowing how much you're worth in the job market in just a moment. So it's a reason. I'm going to lead you to a result. I'm always going to give you a strategy. But I'm just naming these signs because this is very real. So I know it's not just my coaching clients, right? I know this is, if it's with them, it's with other people that are following my work. So with that, they have a hesitation to leave their current position. So their fear is that if I leave here in an attempt to go make more money or have more greater level of responsibility or increase my impact or get into a more aligned position doing the work that I really, really, really want to do, I'm going to have to start at the bottom like I did here. And that's going to take me 10 years to get where I am now, even though technically they're not like in a high ranking position, right? Some of them, again, are maybe like at social worker 2 level. Not even like a team lead, maybe like a team lead mini supervisor, right? And so the point of me bringing this sign up is because that the hesitation, the fear that you feel internally is because you don't accurately know how much you're worth in the job market. And you're going back to sign 1, you're going by the people in the organization, or you're going by the salary that you're currently making in your job. And that's not how you accurately make that assessment, right? So fear of starting over is the third sign that you don't have a good understanding of how much your expertise is worth in the job market. So the reason I bring all of that up is because I want to now give you 3 ways to start learning how much you're worth in the job market, how much your expertise is valued at. And it doesn't start by looking at other jobs, right? That's low-hanging fruit. That's not how you accurately assess it. And you most definitely do not go by your organization's like pay chart if you already know that it's not accurate. You're not already being compensated what you should be being paid, okay? So the first way that you can start accurately learning how to assess your value in the job market is understanding what true market value is, right? A lot of people think that your market value, and this isn't just social workers, that your market value is determined based off of your degrees, your credentials, your certifications, right? How we know this not to be true, and I'm not trying to get real technical, is that if that was true, we would not have an overabundance of degree professionals in jobs where they are clearly over-credentialed. Right? So over-credential is the term we use in workforce development, where you have all of these things, these certifications, these licenses, these degrees, multiple masters, multiple bachelors. However, you're in a position, a job that doesn't require that. Right? So it's not uncommon for me to work with social workers who have 2 bachelor's degrees, who have 2 master's degrees. I've had clients like that. And they're working in jobs that barely require a high school diploma, right? Or barely require 1 bachelor's degree. That is a sign that you're over-credentialed, right? So understanding your true market value does not start by looking at your degrees. It starts by effectively evaluating your experience, your skills, your education, if the position you're going for is heavily dependent upon that. I always tell you all that when you look in the job market, which is what I teach my people, how to read the jobs in the actual labor market to move off of facts and not feelings, what you will find is that on average, a macro job only requires a bachelor's degree, right? And people don't believe that until I teach them how to read a job description. And we look at multiple of them. We don't just look at one. We look at multiple, at least 10 plus, right? And so what you will see is on average, it only requires a bachelor's degree. It doesn't require a license. It doesn't require a certification. It doesn't require any specialized anything. Just a bachelor's degree and some passion, right? So understanding your true market value starts by really knowing how to effectively evaluate your experience. That's really it, your experience. And when I say experience, how I talk about that is your transferrable experiences. You hear other people out in the job coaching streets talk about transferable skills. However, when I talk about macro jobs, I'm talking about transferable experiences, right? So I'll break that down because I like to explain things. Transferable skills, when you hear people talk about those things, they're really talking about like soft skills, hard skills. It's usually things like, I'm going to be real generic, customer service, project management, report format. I'm just making up something, right? Those are hard skills. Soft skills would be communication. It would be problem solving, right? So when you hear people talking about transferable skills, that's what they're talking about. However, what I help my coaching clients do is we don't focus on transferable skills because we know that the skills that you use as a case manager are only unique to case management environments, right? I always used to tease y'all in the beginning about the fact that social workers love to have conducted biopsychosocial exams on your resume for macro jobs. However, when you're applying to a macro job, that's not a skill that you will need. It's not relevant to that work. They don't even know what that is. They don't even understand what that is. They don't even talk about the thing, right? So if you have that type of skill on your resume, you're not going to get an interview. However, if you have an experience on your resume, which is maybe you sit on an interdisciplinary team where you were responsible for creating biopsychosocial procedures, policies, and guidelines for an organization, that is a transferable experience. And that's what gets you macro jobs. Not the skill, it's the experience. And there's a lot more that goes into that. But it's the experiences that you have that you use to accurately calculate how much is my expertise worth. Because as social workers, when you work on the micro level, the local level, we already know that we're working in organizations where usually our supervisor, was true for me back in the day, is giving us things over and beyond our scope of work. Right? Things that what they're supposed to be doing, but because they don't have the capacity, they give it to us. I call that macro goal, right? Those are the experiences that you need to be capturing on your resume as opposed to those skills that you're using to do the other stuff. Okay? So I gave you a lot of detail there. So the first way is to better understand what your market value, your true market value is. And the first way you do that is by evaluating your experiences, right? It's not a lot about your skills. It's not a whole lot about your education. It's about your experiences. And these experiences are not based on what your employer is telling you. It's based on what you have collected and assessed. The second way you start to move in a direction where you're accurately assessing your value as far as your expertise in the job market is that you need to start better understanding roles or identifying roles that give you an opportunity to experience real growth in your career. Like I said earlier, a lot of social workers stay in very lateral positions. That's because they don't know how to identify, okay, is this a step up? Is this a promotion? I've heard, and now that I'm saying that, I'm sorry, I'm sitting on my sofa a little different today. I've heard a lot of social workers say where they have taken jobs thinking it was a promotion when in essence it was a glorified case management job. Right? Or they took a position thinking that they were going to get a raise and more responsibility, or that it was going to be macro and it wasn't. And again, this is because they didn't know how to effectively identify roles that really were giving them an opportunity for advancement in their career. And a large part of that is because they didn't understand where they were starting. Right? I talked about this last night in the live, where what I'm realizing is that many social workers don't even understand what they do in their job. And that's not me being funny. That's because I know I like to laugh, but I'm being true. When I ask people to explain to me what they do, it's very brief. It's no detail to it. It's like 2 to 3 words. It's the equivalent of like when you use Chat GPT, and Chat GPT gives you very like basic words and it doesn't give you any depth to it. That's what I see with some social workers when I ask them what they do in their work. And what that comes from, again, is what I talked about earlier, is where they don't understand how their role fits in the much larger organizational makeup of where they work. And so when you don't have an understanding of what your job is and why you're doing it and why it's important, you then won't understand how what you're doing currently positions you for the next role above you. You won't even know what the next role should be for you based on where you are. I did a free career planning live session on Sunday for the people who get my newsletters and my emails, and there was quite a few of us in the room. It was a great session. And one of the questions that I got from an attendee was around like figuring out how her organization worked, because she admittedly did not know. And so I share that because a lot of social workers are that way. A lot of them don't understand that their organization is being governed by some larger organization, right? Some go-between, pass-through organization, which could, depending on their role, be a macro organization that you can target. A lot of people think that their work is just governed by their CEO. No, your work is being governed by someone above your CEO, someone above your director, by some type of governmental agency, by some type of federal funding stream, by some type of private funding stream, which usually are macro organizations. But a lot of people don't realize that there's more going on around them. Okay? So then the third thing is that when you learn how to really assess your market, your value, your expertise value, you then can confidently pursue higher level roles. You will be able to go after these jobs that you want, that you see, that you admire from afar, that people have, right? I don't get the question right, like how to build my confidence, but ultimately it's the premise of it's the basics of that. Like a lot of social workers that I come in contact with, really at the root, what they're dealing with is confidence issues. That's why I talk about it so much, because what I started to see in like cohorts 9 and 10, because now I'm gearing up for cohort 16. It's been 16 cohorts since I started. It's in 2021. What I started to see around cohorts 9 and 10 is that participants had a resume. They had the macro resume. They knew how to find the jobs. They knew how to articulate their value. They knew what types of jobs they wanted. On paper, they were competitive. They knew how to answer the interview questions. However, they still were reluctant to hit apply. Right? And so this is when I introduced a confidence coach inside of the accelerator, because I do confidence coaching with them. However, I'm here to teach you how to get the job. So I introduced confidence coaching as a component to my program. And so with that, it's designed to help people get more confident in their ability to go after bigger jobs, right? And so I don't want you to stay in the same type of job. If that's the case, you can stay where you are right now. The goal should be to go to something bigger, some type of high level role. Again, it does not have to be the CEO, president of an organization, but it should give you some more responsibilities, duty, impact, insert your thing. It should get you closer in alignment to what you really want to do. Like on Sunday when we were having a career planning session, we only were talking about macro work that we wanted to do. I had aspiring researchers in the room. I had people in the room who wanted to do national level advocacy for justice involved youth. I had people in the room who are extremely interested in the cure of Alzheimer's, and I don't know if I said it right. I had people in the room who are interested in the approach of mental health care as medical health care and it being covered by medical health insurance. It was a ton of change makers in the room, right? And so to hear them, because I had them share out what is the thing that they want to work on as a macro social worker, so they could hear what they aspire to do. To hear them say that just like made my heart smile, right? However, I know, and it's not me being like doom and gloom, only 80% of them won't confidently go after what they want if they don't get the coaching they need to be more confident to go after the positions they want, right? Because they've been for 8-10 plus years in these low level roles that are well below what they're envisioning. They were true visionaries in the room. If you're on this live and you were in that room on Sunday, you're a visionary. Remember what I told you? You are the expert, right? And so when you have a good understanding about how much your expertise is worth in the market, you will confidently pursue higher level roles, and you won't blink at a big salary on the paper. You won't blink at a large sounding job title on a job board, because you know that you have the experience to do this job, right? Because you've learned how to accurately assess what your experience is, where you've already done this before, what makes you an expert, right? So all of my coaching clients will tell you, I call them the expert. I'm the expert on my thing. They are the expert on their thing. So being able to confidently pursue higher level roles starts from your ability to accurately understand, communicate, interpret what experience you have that make you so valuable in the job market. So if you're just coming into the live, or if you're watching a replay, drop, or if you've been here the whole time, somebody been riding with me the whole time. I saw some hearts at one point too. Drop in the, if you're comfortable, drop in the, what are we on? Instagram, the comment box, the live box, and tell me, like, do you accurately know how to assess your value in the job market? Do you know how to do it? Do you struggle with it? Did you hear something today that makes you think like, maybe I don't really know how much I'm worth? All right, let me know. And with that, I want to say that I'm going to be having a webinar on October 13th where I'm going to be teaching you how you're already qualified to get a macro social work job, right? Because when you don't know your value, it then makes you believe that you're not qualified for the jobs you want, which then keeps you stuck in the jobs that you don't want, and it keeps you dreaming about what you really, really want to do. So in this webinar, I'm going to be teaching you I'm going to be sharing and breaking down the top 5 experiences that every social worker already has that makes them qualified for macro jobs. You already have them, right? And so this is an element of what I teach my coaching clients, and I'm pulling it out to offer it in this webinar, and the cost is only $25, right? I'm going to be breaking down 5 things that you already do that makes you qualified to do macro work, which then needs to be put on your resume, which then needs to be talked about in an interview, which then needs to be positioning you for these larger, more impactful roles. I went through my job to identify my transferrable skills. It was kind of hard to identify the experiences, but you at least knew what to look for. This is somebody that took this webinar before. Well, she took the full version of the workshop. You went through them, but you at least identified, right? Give me one that you identified, an experience that you had, because you're still at the early stages. Because you get more in-depth support on this one. But tell the people in the comments what one experience you identified that you had. But that's what I'm going to be going over in the webinar. I'm going to be going over 5. There's a multitude of them, but we're going to be going over the top 5 that everyone has, because I want you all to see on paper that you already qualify for these jobs. And I'm going to have examples of job postings, actual live job postings, and I want to show you where this experience that you have is the requirement that this employer is looking for. And we're going to be, and it's not going to be, do you see where it says social work degree or MSW degree? That's not going to be what we're doing. We're going to be looking at the actual transferable experiences. So it's going to be like a live case study / webinar where I'm going to have some macro job postings. I'm going to break down 5 of the top transferable experiences that every social worker has. I'm going to be putting it into context that you can understand in your case and identify in your case management job. And then I'm going to be comparing, contrasting that to actual job posts. I'm even going to have several of my coaching clients who have landed macro jobs there to talk about their transferable experiences and how those specific experiences got them their macro job. I'm going to have one of my coaching clients that just started her macro job yesterday. We haven't even done a podcast episode, but she's agreed to come and talk about what got her job. So I want you to come. The link is in the bio. The ticket is only $25. It's going to be Sunday, October 13th from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Think of it like a live 2-hour case study example. You will walk away clearly understanding what are the top 5 transferable experiences that micro employers value. You will learn how to articulate and communicate. You will learn how to identify those experiences in your day-to-day work, past and present, and then you will learn how to articulate that or translate that both verbally and written. So that's on your resume, that's in your actual interview. So I'm going to go, because I said I was going to be on for 30 minutes, and that's clearly over. Oh, okay, you came in. Okay, let's see. Research showed up in multiple jobs. So for one job, I conducted research to identify local resources like food banks, mental health services, etc., reviewing Medicaid guidelines. Very good, Shapri. Shapri did not know that she had did that before going through the expanded version of this workshop. So let me read that again for the people that's watching on the replay. Shapri learned in the expanded version of this workshop that she, as a medical social worker, had done research. And she actually has done that in multiple jobs. So she says for one job, she conducted research to identify local resources. So I broke down to her that was the experience, and we did a deep dive into what that actually looked like. And so for her, it looked like she had done research to identify local resources like food banks, mental health services, etc., reviewing Medicaid guidelines. Ooh, Shapri. Yes, the Medicaid guidelines. That's research, right? When you are serving your patients, that stuff don't just fall into your brain. You had to go and research some policies to know, okay, Medicaid, I'm just making this up based off of what I know from my medical social workers. Okay, Medicaid only covers 30% of healthcare coverage for inpatient treatment. So I'm going to have to go to the city to see if they can subsidize the rest. That's reviewing a Medicaid guidelines. And Shapri says, grateful for you. You're welcome, Shapri. You've been doing the work. So Shapri started out with identifying 10 of her transferable experiences, and then her homework is to go through all of her jobs and identify her transferable experiences, which is going to take you some time. So you're doing good. You're doing good. But for those who are watching the replay, if you want to be like Shapri and be able to identify your transferable experiences and be able to articulate them, then you see she didn't say anything about conducting a biopsychosocial exam as research. She's giving you tangible things that are relevant to the types of macro jobs she wants to go to. I encourage you to come to the webinar. There will be a replay, but you should be live. All right, I'm going to go. Thanks, Shapri, for coming and engaging. I'll see you on Sunday. Everybody else, happy macro career planning. Bye.